The Golden Gift by James Tillman. The following takes place on Christmas Day, 1999, at 12:30 a.m. The room was pitch black and the air was filled with silence. A smell of tobacco smoke permeated the room. Suddenly there came two consecutive thudding noises from the chimney. The first thud came from a sack of presents. The second thud came from a rotund man with a thick white beard and dressed all in red, including a woolly red hat. As the man crawled out of the fireplace, he carelessly chucked his sack of presents to one side and staggered towards the nearest wall. With his right hand he withdrew a half-drunk bottle of whiskey, taking swigs from it whilst he fumbled along the wall, searching for the light switch. He found it eventually and clicked it. The man shielded his eyes as the dizzying brightness stung his retinas. As his eyes slowly adjusted, he lowered his hand. "What the—" he exclaimed as he staggered back in astonishment. In front of him was a round, dark oak table, and sat facing him was a slim man wearing a smart grey suit. In his right hand was a pistol, in his left a half-finished cigarette. He calmly stubbed the cigarette out on the table as he spoke.
Ho, ho, ho. If it isn't Santa. I thought you might be dropping in. Remember last year? You cost me a lot of money. 100 grand to be precise. Care to give me an explanation? Or are you just going to stand there looking like a gormless fat man?
The following takes place the previous year, on Christmas Day at 1 a.m. Santa entered the house via the chimney, a half-filled sack of presents on his back. With surprising stealth, he crept silently up the staircase and eased open the first bedroom door he came to. A young boy was gently mumbling in his sleep. Stockings bulging with presents hung from the bed's wooden frame. Santa placed his sack next to the stockings, and as he went to touch them, the boy woke up. A brief pause followed as the two of them tried to see each other in the dark. Then the boy exclaimed, "Santa!" Santa put his hand up to tell the boy to be quiet. He delved into his coat and brought out a bottle of whiskey.
"Special gift from Santa. Drink up, lad."
The boy took a swig. Santa waited patiently, and, within minutes, the boy was sound asleep. Satisfied with his handiwork, Santa made his way back to the stockings, where he proceeded to empty their presents into his sack, before making his way downstairs. Santa's stealth had rendered the occupants of the house unaware of his presence, so he decided to go into the lounge, where he relaxed into an old sofa and lit up a cigarette. That noise! Was that a floorboard squeaking? Was somebody up? In his panic, Santa fumbled the cigarette out of his fingers. Concerned, he crept up to the foot of the stairs. He listened intently, trying to figure out what the sound was. He couldn't hear floorboards creaking anymore. Had he imagined it? Moments later, a new sound greeted him, a crackling coming from the lounge. He rushed back to find the sofa smouldering where the cigarette lay. Noticing the door to the kitchen was slightly ajar, he stumbled over with the intent of getting water from the taps. As he opened the door, he cursed as its stiff hinges squeaked like a mouse being castrated. He knew he had to think fast and come up with a quieter way to extinguish the flames. So, he unzipped his trousers and proceeded to douse the blaze with the contents of his bladder. The flames died down, and Santa was relieved, in more ways than one. He contemplated lighting up a fresh cigarette when he heard the unmistakable sound of footsteps coming down the stairs. Santa picked his sack of presents up and, using them as a shield, crashed through the living room window. He picked himself up from the ground, dusted the glass off, and glanced back to see a shocked lady watching him. He promptly flung himself through a gap in the hedge and escaped. He laid low for some time, skulking amongst the bushes of the suburban gardens as he hid from nosy neighbours peering out to determine the source of the ruckus. He eventually made his way into a different neighbourhood and clambered to the top of another house. 2 thudding noises came from the chimney. The room he entered was empty, but the light was shining bright. In the centre of the room was a round, dark oak table, which was pockmarked with cigarette stains where they had been stubbed out. In the corner of the room, to the right of the chimney, was a Christmas tree, and underneath it there was a single box-shaped present wrapped in gold paper. Without hesitation, he took the present and shoved it in his sack. An angry voice bellowed from behind him.
Oi! Put that back!
In the open doorway, he saw a man in a grey suit, running towards him, shouting, and drawing a pistol. Santa ran to the other side of the room as fast as his overweight frame allowed him. He crashed through the window just as the first shots were fired, and managed to escape unharmed. Half an hour later, and Santa had trudged his way back to his house, a bungalow at the end of a cul-de-sac. When he entered, he emptied his haul of presents under the Christmas tree. He brought the golden-wrapped present to his ear and heard ticking. Curious about the contents of the present, he began gently shaking it. A glimpse of a man's silhouette outside the window startled the present out of his grasp. The silhouette belonged to a man in a black suit and a black hat that was pulled down, covering half of his face. The man went to the front door, and Santa could hear the lock being picked. Panicked, Santa made a familiar exit by crashing through a window at the back of his house. As he did so, he heard the front door open. Santa picked himself up, dusted the glass off, started running, and then... An earth-shattering rumble erupted as the bungalow was ripped to pieces by an almighty explosion. Santa managed to escape to the back of the garden, unharmed. Once there, he sat down facing the ruins of his house and went straight for his whiskey. We now return to the present, Christmas Day, 1999.
100 grand?
Santa questioned the man in the grey suit.
You stole something from me. It was disguised as a Christmas present, wrapped in gold paper. I was going to be paid 100 grand for it.
That was a bomb. It blew my house up. At least you still got your house.
Maybe it was a bomb. Maybe it wouldn't have gone boom if you hadn't fiddled with it.
The following takes place on the previous year, on the 10th of December at 11:15 p.m. The man in the grey suit was driving his car down a deserted country lane. His name is Jack. In the back seat of the car was a black briefcase, and inside it was a diamond. The passenger seat and one of the back seats were occupied by 2 of his goons. As he reached the designated drop-off point, Jack parked his car on the grass. He reached behind him and grabbed the briefcase. The crickets chirped as he tramped through the undergrowth. He reached a short stone bridge traversing a stream below. He carefully hid the briefcase in the grassy undergrowth beneath the bridge, the agreed drop-off point. As he made his way back, he paused briefly. There was a rustling sound. Deciding it must have been an animal or the wind, he made his way back to the car. We now skip forward a couple of weeks to Christmas Day at midnight. The streetlights lit the frosty air with a spooky glow. Outside Jack's house was a man in a black suit and a black hat pulled down, covering half of his face. He was carrying a parcel wrapped in gold paper. He rang the bell. After about a minute, Jack opened the door.
Another assignment, Roy?
No, I thought I'd just be charitable as it's Christmas, the time for giving. Course it's another bleeding assignment. Now take this, and whatever you do, don't open it, 'cause it's dangerous. Got it? Some men will come to pick it up in the morning, and they'll give you 100 grand for it.
100 grand?
Yeah, 100 grand. Now keep your voice down. We don't want anyone to become suspicious, do we?
And with that, Roy left, leaving Jack with the golden wrapped parcel. Back to the present. Christmas Day, 1999.
You going to explain why you broke into my house and stole it? More to the point, you going to explain why you're here now? Or am I just going to have to shoot you?
The standoff was interrupted when they heard a noise at the front door. Someone was picking the lock. They both listened intently, and after a few minutes, the door creaked open. A few seconds later, a man in a black suit and with a black hat pulled down, covering half of his face, entered the room. It was Roy, and he had a pistol in his right hand, which he kept focused on Jack.
All right, Jack.
Roy pulled his hat back to reveal a face that had been severely burnt.
Fuck,
Jack exclaimed involuntarily.
That's not my name. I have a name, you know. And yes, I am still alive. You shouldn't be. You should have been dead a year ago, after you screwed me over on that diamond smuggling job.
Back to the 10th of December, on the previous year, on the cusp of midnight. It was a dark night, and the moonlight was obscured by the clouds. There was a distinct chill in the air. Roy trudged through the overgrown grass towards the drop-off point under the bridge. A torch helped him to find his way. He reached the drop-off point and shone the torch in amongst the undergrowth where the briefcase was to be placed. He brushed away the tall grass with his left hand, whilst the torch, in his other hand, lit up a tattered black briefcase. He withdrew it and, seeing that it was unlocked, opened it. The briefcase was empty. He swallowed his anger and rummaged in the undergrowth again, but this time all he could find was an empty bottle of whiskey. He kicked the empty briefcase into the stream. He then punched the stone bridge in anger before leaving the scene with vengeance on his mind. Back to the present, Christmas, 1999, at 1:15 in the morning.
Roy, I never screwed you over.
You sure about that? That parcel, wrapped in gold paper? It weren't worth anything. It was a bomb, but I had it on a timer, waiting for your cronies to be inside with you. Didn't work though, did it? Fucking Santa here stole it. I had to go chasing after it, and it blew me half to hell. And that's another thing.
Roy pointed to Santa.
My wife comes to me in the hospital, and the first thing she tells me is that you broke into my house on that same night. Apparently, you tried to turn my 6-year-old son into an alcoholic, burnt my precious sofa with a cigarette, then drenched it in piss. And then you smashed in my windows. What the fuck do you think you're doing? And who the hell do you think you are?
Santa shrugged his shoulders and then began to take off his red hat and his red suit. Finally, he pulled his thick, fake white beard off. His true identity was now revealed.
This meant to be the big reveal? Yeah, we get it. You're just some random drunk playing Santa.
Santa then delved into his sack of presents, whilst the other two men watched him curiously. Suddenly becoming impatient, Roy pulled out another pistol with his left hand and aimed it at Santa.
What are you doing?
Santa ignored him and brought out a smart black briefcase, opened it up, and then slid it along the floor.
The diamond!
Roy exclaimed as it sparkled enticingly in the suitcase. Roy then noticed a piece of paper lying underneath the diamond. He took it out and read it. It read, "Cops."
What the hell is that meant to mean?
Roy looked up. The man formerly dressed as Santa had left the room. He then heard a window smashing. This was shortly followed by a cacophony of police sirens. Roy exchanged a grim look with Jack and meekly said the only thing he could think of in the situation.
Bugger.
That was The Golden Gift, written by James Tillman. Narrated by Doug Pennant.